Good afternoon, Prashantji. Thank you. Thanks to Madam Nirupama and also to you, particularly in person, for inviting me and providing this opportunity. Briefly talk about UNB first before I go to my topic of discussion today. And I welcome the students and others who have joined. First of all, UN Volunteers is a program of United Nations. We are administered by UNDP, which is United Nations Development Program, which is a very big UN program all over the globe. UN Volunteer is based in 130 countries, so we have offices in the countries. In India, we have office in UNDP, of course, and we are present for about 3 decades in India. We mainly support governments, all the member states of United Nations to promote volunteers and also work with the United Nations agencies, funds and programs and provide them volunteers for various work. So that's very briefly about UN volunteers. And then coming to India, I will just briefly talk about what we have been doing for some time. In India, we have been providing lots of volunteers to United Nations agencies for various programs. We have 2 pillars. One is, of course, normal volunteers who work like full-time staff of United Nations. And the other pillar is, of course, online volunteers. And we have an online volunteer platform, which is a global platform, which has about 600,000 enrolled volunteers who volunteer all across the globe, so in many countries. And India has a very special chapter on that, and we have a very large number of online volunteers. We have around 12,000 plus online volunteers who support us in the online work. So I will come at the end about our online volunteers and opportunities for the youth and the students. But now I would like to say that the other part which we do with the government is supporting a volunteer organization in India, which is one of the biggest youth program anywhere in the world, Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan. And we have provided 64 full-time volunteers who have been working in the districts and supporting the government in promoting volunteering. And they are almost present in all the states except Goa and Jammu and Kashmir. So that is very briefly, and we reach out to very large audience in the country. So every week we reach to 1 million people through our network in India during COVID. So about 10 lakhs people we reach out every week. About the topic very briefly, because we have time concerns, so I will talk briefly about what we mean by volunteering and then how volunteering has shaped up in India and other parts of the country, what are the good practices being done and how COVID response is being done and what are the opportunities. These are basically 4 or 5 areas. So coming to the volunteering part, there have been confusion all across. Anybody who does something thinks that he or she is a volunteer, which is not correct on many occasions. So as far as a very accepted definition of volunteering is concerned, there are 3 important components. So any activity done by anyone, which is voluntary, which is done by willingness of the person concerned, and which has a larger social good component built upon it, and where monetary benefits are not the primary motive. So there are 3 conditions to be made. One is that the work has to be very voluntary by the person, and it has to have a social underpinning. So that means there is something social good. And the last part and the most important part is the money part, and money should not be the primary consideration. So volunteering is much indifferent in terms of these components as compared to charity or philanthropy, and there are so many other words which are used. So to become a volunteer, one has to actually meet these 3 basic conditions. And what we find that how volunteering is done and how volunteering is basically strived. There are 3 important components. Again, one is, of course, the passion of the person. The second is the persistence. It's not one-off. It's a very sort of journey. And the third is perseverance. So if one has the passion for volunteering, is ready to have persistence, perseverance, then probably the person is right fit for becoming a volunteer. So very briefly about this volunteering, and then I will come to the Indian part. As we know that we have a very, very strong cultural, religious, and social underpinning as far as volunteering is concerned. So right from beginning, if you see the Indian civilization and Indian history, volunteering is entrenched in our socio-cultural religious ethos. And so this is not something new which we are talking about today. In terms of some examples, I will start the great moment of freedom for the country. So India's freedom movement is also considered to be one of the biggest volunteering movement in the world, where millions of volunteers were actually working for the country. And then post-freedom, there have been very big volunteering support for larger programs like mission. If some of us can recall, very recently in some of last couple of decades, Pulse Polio mission, one where millions of volunteers were actually mobilized. And very currently, we are seeing the COVID-19, where again millions and millions of volunteers as a frontline workers are working. It's not only from the government side, but also from the civil society side and volunteers per se. So, however, India, as we are a very big country, we are a very diverse country. So similarly, in volunteering, again, we are very diverse. So you have very strong sort of volunteering movement in some parts of the country, some states like Kerala, but you might not have that in some other part. Similarly, in terms of our volunteering, contribution, we have found that it is a religious domain where we have the maximum number of volunteers. And most of the people are actually attracted to do volunteering through religious, religious maybe demand or religious, affiliation and so on and so forth. In terms of social, environmental, and economic, which are the other pillars for doing volunteering, in the last few years and maybe last decade or so, there have been some movements, and we have heard about, if we talk about the social part, where you had the literacy mission, and then maybe a couple of like pulse polio mission, etc. And then of course we also had this big program on Teach India, and this kind of and in the last 3 years we have also seen many number of organizations which are coming for food and supply and other things. I'm not talking about NGOs per se, but then NGOs have different working modality. But there are certain NGOs who are basically volunteer based, and we call it volunteer involving organization. Enroll volunteers on individual basis, on a small groups of volunteers work there, and then they. So if we have seen the rise of organizations like Robin Hood Army, Feeding India, and there are many new organizations which have come up in this landscape. So volunteering landscape has been changing. It's becoming more and more, proactive, coming from the religious background. Now it is moving to social, environmental, and economic side. And we have more and more volunteers enrolling for actually environmental and disaster related and climate related volunteering in India. So volunteering landscape in India, which was predominantly religious, is seeing a transformation. And of course, COVID-19 again provides us that opportunity. But again, like there are certain weaknesses. There are very strong ethos, cultural and social part of the volunteering in India. But at the same time, we also suffer from certain weaknesses. And we have done a couple of studies in the past, and which actually reflect that volunteering in India has been to some extent very ad hoc. It is one-off, like people can do, like if you have certain problems, or some challenges which have to do volunteering, and thereafter again back to normal. So there is no consistency in the volunteering efforts. So we always hear about the blood donation camps, tree plantation drives, and so on and so forth. So one of unorganized ad hoc. So these are some of the weaknesses. We also find that there are very few formal structures for volunteering in a country like India its size. We have very few volunteering organizations who provide opportunity for people, particularly young people, because young people want to get engaged in a more meaningful way. They want to have the engagement for a larger time, longer duration, and so on and so forth. So there are certain like challenges. Again, like in India, country like India, we have very few, like recognition or awards, for example. So motivation is, I think, the primary driving force for volunteering. So unless until you build in some motivation, it is difficult for people to go and volunteer their time and efforts and resources. So unless we give them adequate recognition, we have very limited accreditation for volunteers. NSS and NCC get a bit of it, but then large number of volunteers who work otherwise have no access to any accreditation, so they don't get kind of recognition they should. There is no credit for their. Similarly, we hardly make any impact assessment in India. That what kind of social contributions or economic contributions, what kind of social capital which is being generated and created by volunteers. Also, we don't have like very big technological platforms, which I will be talking a bit later. But at this point of time, I would like to say that these are 4 or 5 major weaknesses we have noticed in our studies conducted in India in terms of volunteering. Coming to the international side of volunteering, I'll just give a couple of examples, and then I will move on because we have limited time available. Our latest study, like UNB does every 2 years, we do a very comprehensive study worldwide about volunteering. And as per that study, about 1 billion people, like 100 crore people, volunteer full time. Like if you take the contribution of volunteers, the contribution will be equal to 100 crore people for country. No big corporation, whether it's a Facebook or whatever, so biggest of the firms, ever have that many people in the world. So that's the global scene. So about 100 crore people contributing to as a their time and efforts, which is equivalent to 100 crore workforce. So that is something which is very, very great. And then social aspect of this is, it's immense. It's enormous. You can't count it. The kind of changes they bring. So internationally, a lot of countries have taken very structured and organized, responses to the challenges of volunteering, and they have really made their volunteering program by legislative support, that is bringing law, and by creating enabling environment, that is providing capacity building efforts, providing technological platforms, giving recognition, etc., etc. And so by their interventions, by the governments and by the civil society and private sector, academia, everybody in some of the advanced countries and some of even the developing middle income countries, we call them, they have really created good sort of volunteering platforms and volunteering infrastructure, which actually promotes volunteering in the country. So some of the examples I would like to quote, which will be easier for people to understand, and particularly as students who are actually always more than willing to contribute to the nation building and social. So Malaysia, Indonesia, and South Korea, they are our almost like neighbors, no, in India, Asia. They have a program where students get credit hours. So if you put 20 hours in a month or maybe 100 hours in a year, so you get those hours in your credit, and this becomes part of your university assessment for higher studies. So that is integrated with their higher studies, like something like NSS, which is done in a very small way in India, and it has not much recognition and much accreditation at this point of time. Similarly, Japan has a scheme which is called as a Hurai Kipo. And this scheme is very unique, where everybody, like every one can do volunteering, and there are opportunities available. You go, you have enrollment number, volunteer number, you do volunteering. you get your credits. And these credit you can always get reimbursed anytime in your lifetime. So suppose if you have provided 1,000 hours of volunteering and that is in your credit, when you become old or when you fall sick, government will send you volunteers for those many hours. So you have that reimbursement system in place. Similar systems are also available in China. China, again, you get like Beijing volunteering organization has a credit system. And this credit system again allows you to accumulate your credits, and you can redeem these credits for your public service. So availing public services. So if you are going a student and you want to avail metro services, so you will get concessional tickets and some points will be deducted. Similarly, you can go and actually pay your electricity bill or your any public utilities, even mobile phones, recharge. So you get credits, reimburse those credits. Then United Kingdom, London again has similar program where time credits are given and you can swap those for skills. So you are a student, you give 100 hours of your volunteering time, and then you are enrolled to government skilling programs with a credit that you can get free of cost, something like that. So you don't have to pay much, or if you have to pay, you have to just pay a nominal amount for your skilling program. Similarly, South Africa, United States of America system. So it is not only volunteering that people are going and doing volunteering, but at the same time, they are getting accredited, they are getting recognition, they are awarded, and of course, they are also getting some public services in return. So badges are given so that they are recognized well. Coming to the international dimension, again, I would like to talk a bit about how volunteering becomes often formative, a powerful tool. If we see some of the interventions globally, we have seen that volunteers make a lot of difference. I will not go into the past in much. I will dwell upon much on COVID-19 responses. Anywhere in the world, any country you see at this point of time, COVID response cannot be done without volunteers. Some of the volunteers come through the government or government volunteering schemes and programs. Like in India, we have NYKs, Nehru Yuva Sanghathan volunteers, and we also have NSS volunteers, NCC volunteers, Bharat Scouts and Guides, and ASA workers are also considered to some extent volunteering force only because they are not government employee in any case. So millions and millions of volunteers are actually giving their time and efforts and for COVID response. And here, coming to our part, like our online volunteers and our on-site volunteers, both are doing a lot of work on basically 3-4 key areas, which volunteers are very good at. One is, of course, community outreach and awareness. So that is something which is any disaster or pandemic like COVID-19 has the important component built upon that, how you make community aware about the disaster, or the impending disaster, or the impact of disaster. And what are the precautions? So even during lockdown, if you are reaching out to millions of volunteers and in turn millions of volunteers are reaching out to the community, it's a tremendous job which is done by the volunteers all across. It's being done not only in India, but in China initially when it started, and it's moving to every country, and then every country has large number of volunteers who are actually contributing. And in India, we have seen within our government program with the government, volunteers are right in the beginning when the lockdown was not in place. Volunteers went home to home, house to house, and they started making community aware about the coming disaster and the kind of pandemic, its impact, what has to be done. Similarly, they started some kind of surveillance, what's happening around. They started reporting to the government functionary that what's going on. Then when the lockdown started, most of the thing was being done by again basically online through, of course, messaging channels and Facebook, etc., the social media channel. But once the lockdown has been started, relaxed, now people are like volunteers, our volunteers and local volunteers, everyone is again going to the field, helping the authorities in decontaminating the areas, food distribution. Mask distribution, like mask preparation and distribution, is going on a massive scale. So this kind of work, which is totally voluntary by the volunteers out of their own volition, it is such a tremendous impact on the society, because it's the ownership of the society comes very naturally when volunteers from the local area are in. So these are some of, and again, like COVID-19 has really opened the eye of not only the Indian government, but many other governments in the world who are really looking at the volunteering program as one of the key sort of responder, key support during the government effort. And even in India, there are so many other players, private sector and civil society organizations, academia, like MIT University and others, they are coming together to support the government. So, but then coming to the volunteering part, particularly in the COVID response, what we have been facing, I just wanted to share a couple of our experience, you can say, or maybe we are still in the phase of response and relief, but the kind of thing which we are receiving from the ground level when we engage, millions of volunteers. What we have been actually hearing from the ground, that the virus itself is not a big problem. The larger problem is the social side of this whole COVID-19 response and its impact on people. So also misinformation and rumor is something which is more damaging than the virus, because virus has not impacted everyone, but then misinformation and rumor and bringing some kind of hatred among the communities, and then so lack of solidarity, some kind of stigmatization of the people who have been affected. So hate peddling is happening, rumor peddling is happening. So it's all there are so many other issues, of course, related to the discrimination of people who are part of either from the medical fraternity or frontline worker, stigmatization that you are going out, or you might bring so stuff like that. So will not be a problem, because science is there, technology is there, and then of course in coming months probably we'll have immunization also, and medicines are in any case are there, and more medicines, very effective medicines will be coming. But the kind of social problem which is coming up because of this virus, in terms of discrimination, in terms of even in some places we have been hearing about rise in the domestic violence, lack of cohesion among the community members, and hate keep being peddled through social media, fake news, misinformation. So all these problems are actually creating a lot of issues on the ground level within the small communities in interiors. And I think volunteers, particularly those from the young generation students who are participating in this webinar, I actually urge them that they should really start working on this part of the social problem rather than COVID per se, because COVID is something which the government and society and also like technology is there to support. But then the social part of this virus is something where I think volunteers have the largest role to play. Apart from, of course, COVID, we already have been talking about role of volunteers in disasters and then climate risk. So those are the larger challenges. I'd like to give one small example that this lockdown period has created very positive side in the environment. So how we sustain it, though we cannot keep all the factories closed all the time, but how we bring the change in the behavior of the people so that they become more climate sensitive, they are really environment friendly. So, and the good thing which have emerged out of this COVID lockdown can be taken ahead. So these are some of the thoughts I thought must share with the volunteers, students. Coming to the last part of my talk before I close and I'll open for the question and answer. I think there are a couple of things which I would like to dwell upon when we talk about reimagining volunteering post-COVID. As all of us have now realized that COVID-19 has actually been a great game changer. In last 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it has changed the way we live. And the new normal, I don't know what will be the new normal, but the kind of changes which have happened in last 6-8 weeks when we are working remotely, we are not commuting, we are separated, we are not socializing. So these things are not going to go very soon. Keep nature of this virus and all. So in the coming months and years, how we, wherever we are, how we can support the community and the country in dealing with the COVID-19 and also taking the volunteering as a larger than what has been pre-COVID. So pre-COVID and post-COVID volunteering will be slightly different because post-COVID volunteering is mainly done through online mediums, which is online volunteers, social media, messaging apps, creating innovation, solving problem through innovation without going to the field, doing online surveys, talking to the community members online, as doing a small, community engagement. We have actually our volunteers doing a lot of focused group discussions over, these mediums as Zoom and Skype. So we never thought of doing those things 6 weeks before. So the way the volunteers sitting in their home, how they are able to reach out to the, to the networks. Of course, you can't reach out directly if you have a good network. How this technology is really helping in solving some of the problems. And of course, I will talk about our engagement, B-Force volunteer, who I think I would also request students to join. But then there are a few things which I would like to talk about. One is, of course, the hyper-local volunteering. We are a very big country. We are a continent. How we reach out to the last village, unless we have, either the post office level, village level, pin level, like postal index level in urban areas, volunteering networks, volunteering communities, it will be difficult to reach out to the people. So hyper-local volunteering is something which is happening now and which is going to happen more. So a small volunteering communities at each level, and then you aggregate them at a district level and maybe a state level and the national level. So that is one, I think a student should keep in mind, that hyper-local volunteering is going to have a lot of impact. Gamification, which is again, like it is a part of, it has been there for some time, but I think post-COVID gamification is going to grow. How you make active citizens through, problem solving and gamification. So how games become solution providers. So how volunteers go and change, not only interact with the community, not only make them aware, but solve their problems using these gaming techniques, ninjas and all those kind of stuff. I think students are fully aware of that gamification of volunteering. So that's another thing which is happening post-COVID. Then of course the larger programs have to be, ultimately the machine learn. Ultimately, I think the larger volunteering programs and organizations will have to use machine learning and artificial intelligence, which basically deep diving into the data and seeing that what is required, where it is required, how quickly it is required. So that is something where the big players like governments and big corporates will have to make investment. Of course, we have been talking to all these players, including private sector and government, building local solutions, etc., using latest technology of machine learning, artificial intelligence, gamification, a very large technological supported platform where you can have millions of volunteers interacting at a given point of time. So these are some areas which are emerging post-COVID. So these are actually reimagining. And then coming to my maybe 3 or 4 key recommendations. One would be like volunteering in India, as I have talked earlier, has been very ad hoc, unorganized, not platform-based, not a support-based sort of volunteering. So how we make volunteering a journey? Volunteering should not be one-off, it should be a journey, and that we have been piloting a few cases in India and many other countries. And we have found that the volunteers who go for a 1-year journey on volunteering as a change maker, so young people taking one area or 2 areas in their local communities, 2 problems, and solving that problem using all the resources at their command through government, private sector, non-government organizations, and philanthropic organizations, and so on and so forth. During the process, they not only interact with the community, solve their problems of education, health, or employment, etc., but also they learn a lot. They learn their communication skill, they learn leadership skill, they learn organizing skills. So this is something, it's a two-way process. And that is in the long run, I think this volunteering journey is something which every student should take. It's not be one a small initiative of volunteering, but they should take some area and then work on that area for maybe 6 months, a year, or 2 years, whatever they feel comfortable with. The second recommendation for, of course, is formalizing of volunteering. In India, 70%, actually globally also, its data is more or less same. About 70% volunteering happens in informal sector, one without any structure, without any organizational support, without any capacity building. So how we formalize this volunteering, informal volunteering into formal volunteering, which is this work UNB has been working with the member states. In India, we have been talking to the government departments, and we are trying to make more and more structures so that volunteering becomes more organized. The third important part, which we have been working, and we as a part of reimagining also, I think is important, is measuring contributions of volunteers and recognizing them through various awards. Of course, we have launched award about 3 years back, and we have been awarding volunteers, about 12 or 10 to 12 volunteers. But it's a very small number in India. Millions of volunteers volunteer, so we must have that. And the credit system, which I gave you some examples. Similar credit system we have been talking to the government for some time. Probably some of the states like Kerala has come up with a department of volunteers. Odisha started something. Madhya Pradesh has started something. So I think in the coming years, more and more, volunteering based organized structures coming up with due credit to the volunteers, recognizing them, etc. So 4 points. One is data and evidence as a part of reimagining volunteering in the post-COVID world, using all the technological solutions, machine learning, artificial intelligence, gamification, etc. The second is enabling environment, creating structures, policies, etc., which the government are developing partnerships like MIT University, like academia, private sector, and many civil society organizations and even agencies can come together, develop some partnership. And last is, of course, full utilization of technology in the post-COVID world, where you can't have a crowd going, and you have some restrictions, which is going to be there for some time. How we use technology as a great enabler. So I think I will stop here, and then if there are questions, I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, I think you have covered very important all the aspects of current scenario of volunteering in India. So I think before proceeding, there are some questions already you have posted, and I'm requesting all the attendees, if you have any question, you can write down in the chat section and you can ask all the panelists, and we will take up in this stage. So Arunji, if I see that, if I ask you one thing in this current scenario, that you talked about the one, evidence that in some countries it is where some volunteers are earning some points and they are then in cashing in. It's a kind of cashback system which they are offering. So is UN volunteers or any other, you have planning to have something, or being a MIT university or academic institution, we can collaborate in a sense that if the students are volunteering on any social aspects with UNDP or any other organization or with NGOs, so they will get something. And so what do you say that in this current in Indian context?
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. Very good question. Actually, this has been under deliberations and discussions for quite some time. One point of time, government was also interested to initiate something for public utility services. But India being a federal state, ultimately things will lie to the state governments, where we are actually have to invest more with the state governments. But having said that, I just wanted to let you know that UNDP, UN volunteers, UNICEF, and other UN agencies, and many of the volunteer involving organizations have now started a discussion. And last month only, we had come up with a proposal to create a coalition of organizations, academia, like all private sector, anyone who wants to become part of it, where we have talked about credit. So suppose if the MIT University wants to give some credit, or even the Delhi Metro wants to give some credit, or maybe Indian Railway wants to give that credit, or any of the public sector or private companies, or anyone who becomes the part of this coalition will be able to provide that. So we are already in the process, and probably in coming, not very, it cannot happen very quickly, but I'm sure that in coming year or so, we'll have some credit system in place, which students and other young people who are volunteering can use for own learning, etc.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Arun, I would just add on to what Mr. Prashant had said here. For example, at Amity University, we have, our one credit course where our students volunteer their time, which is called Human Values Community Outreach at the undergraduate level and community outreach at postgraduate level. So I was just trying to explore and wonder, when credit is already being given, they are being accorded the credit. But if there could be some kind of guidance or some kind of partnership with the UN volunteers, wherein we get guidance exactly what the students' projects can be a little more refined, or some more ideas generated. Is there any way that it can be we can contact you regarding this, and your inputs could really benefit our students?
Oh, that will be great, ma'am. Actually, what I would suggest that in any case, I think once this coalition thing, which already almost like we are creating a alliance or coalition, so names are still to be decided. We are also very bureaucratic organization, so I think it's going to be launched very soon, and then it will be opened for people like organizations, academia, others to enroll and become part of this coalition. So I'll certainly request Prashant and MIT University to be part of that coalition, which ultimately helps in connecting with the students of your university and the larger intervention which is happening. So that will be
so this is right. Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I think that will be a way forward. So the moment I think early week or so, I think that coalition will be announced now, because it is almost in the final shape. And once it is announced, then I think MIT University can become a member of this alliance. And then it will be a process where everybody will gain, no?
Yeah, sure, because this is being given a lot of importance. It's an initiative of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, that this kind of a very unique part came up where our students earn a credit while learning. Because as you would agree, anything to do with volunteering for society cannot be learned in classroom setting. So, which is where it becomes very important that our students reach out to the community and the society. So thank you. Now over to you, Prashant, for more questions.
Yeah, actually, Arunji, the another thing which I, on behalf of the students, normally when we have, majority of in this session are social work, political science, sociology, and other domain, including the faculty members are here from Amity and other universities. So the one important aspect is that every student wants to associate with a reputed organization, and in that UN agencies are their top priority. They want to do their internship with them, or they want to become a volunteer with them. But the kind of system you have, like in UNDP, UNICEF, and other agencies you have, so it is little bit lengthy, and very limited opportunities are there. So can you focus something on this, that how students, if any student is interested, so they can part of your campaigns, or maybe as a volunteer, or any specific thing you are looking in terms of skill or any work, or any specific domain students can apply. Like we have political science also, we have sociology, philosophy, we have management, law, various programs MIT is offering. So in a context as a overhaul, apart from social work, because social workers are main priority they are doing, but apart from that also in general, what is the way to have internships? Can you explain this also here?
Question. And again, internship is something which has been very competitive in event. So because there are very few demand-based, internships, and then it is also paid internship in even now. And earlier also it was for some time it was made unpaid, and that there was some repercussions, of course, in terms of people have to commute and all. So in terms of internship, there will be very limited opportunities because we are a smaller organizations, not very big organizations, where you can have maybe maximum 10 interns in a year or so, no? But then we get at least 20, 30 calls every day about internship and volunteering opportunities. So that is the reason why in many countries we have started, even volunteers have started a local online volunteering platform. We call it VForce. VForce India, for example. Similarly, we have Sri Lanka, Nepal, many countries. In many countries, we have this because people don't get opportunity to work with the UN and understand UN systems or intern with UN. But these are very limited volunteering opportunities which is done online, and so you work on a assignment. So suppose if it is COVID related assignment, it could be related to your community or whatever. So there are a number of assignment. So each volunteer who is registered with VForce, the person gets a training orientation in the right in the beginning, and then also in between there will be a lot of webinars happening to make them more they build their capacity. Then they are given assignment. So suppose you stay home campaign going on, so how many people you are reaching out to, how whether you are developing some small videos where there will be quiz competition, there will be essays or poster competitions, and there's so many things to actually innovate and reach out to the community. And if you are able to complete all assignments, so suppose it is a 1 month or 6 weeks campaign, and you are being given assignment every week, and if you complete all the 6 assignments, then you get a certificate signed by UN volunteers that you online volunteer of VForce, curated by United Nations Volunteer India Office, signed by me. So that's the proof that you have done, and we also mention your kind of work you have done, and all your work is kept. So we can keep for record also, so that both. So and it's as I told earlier, that's why orientation is done, training is done, hand holding support is provided, but then in turn they complete volunteering assignment. So I will request the students who are willing to, but now of course many of the universities now consider these kind of assignments as also a part of their internship requirements. So that decision has to be taken by the universities and colleges, whether they would like online volunteering assignments or online supported by maybe some small work offline, and then you consider them as your internship requirement, because in post-COVID world we don't know what kind of interactions will happen in future. But I think online volunteering assignments could be easily done, and students can do wherever they are located. They can select their problem areas. They can also select their communities. They can work there, and then at the end, if they are able to successfully complete the assignments, etc., that certificate will be generated and given to them. I have answered your question.
Yeah, I think you have covered all the aspects. If I say that if there is any customized way, like if we say that we have 100 students and they want to do something, some internship, or maybe a customized internship can be, is it possible that we can have collaboration and a group of students are working on any specific task, and they are being assigned that job, and they are being provided a certificate. So this is also possible, I believe, that as we spoke.
No, I think internship will not be possible because we have a global sort of, all UN agencies have a global policy on internship. So internship, basically what happens that suppose I need some work to be done. I don't want a full-time staff. I want someone for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So I advertise the work, terms of reference is advertised that, okay, this work has to be done. And then there will be so many applicants, 100, 200, maybe 500,000 applicants. And then there will be screening processes like a normal staff recruitment and interview process, because there will be only few internship opportunities, I said you earlier.
But I think in the VForce it is possible. I think the online volunteerism.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Because in this current situation, this online, especially being a university, and on the other hand, it is only feasible that while sitting at home, students can do their internships. I think so. In that way, we can explore. So
absolutely.
So there are some questions from one or two people. Like one, Mr. Lalit Arora is asking that how can we join UNDP volunteer for COVID-19? So I think you have answered already. I think VForce. You want to add, on this aspect?
No, I think anybody can go. It's a www.b-force.in. So it's a simple, and if you write VForce, I think India page.
Yeah.
Even if you can go and and so registration is open now. We normally stop registration, but because of COVID thing, we have kept it open for some time. So I would request the students who are to become member of VForce, please go and register yourself. And then you'll be then guided. You will receive an email from the moderators after some time. It is not immediate because it's there is a time lag. So it's not that it's not so advanced in terms of corporate kind of website. But then once you register, you will get notification that so and so a webinar is happening, so and so orientation program will be happening, and then once you become part of all these, then there will be assignments coming to you.
There's another question from one of our colleague from the social work department. She is asking that what is the scope of virtual volunteering post-COVID, and what are the specific skills that would be required, where students can work upon to develop themselves?
Yeah, so online volunteering is very popular in Western world, to be very frank. So as I told you that we have 600,000, means 6 lakh volunteers registered in the platform, not only in India, but across the globe. So, and so what is a marketplace, right? So our online volunteering platform is a marketplace. So where there are many NGOs, thousands of NGOs registered. There are lakhs and lakhs of volunteers registered. So NGOs put their opportunity. So some NGO, if they want to get their, if they have to get the proposal written by them, or even agencies assignments, and we also give assignments. For example, to be on the, because time is limited, let me give you one or two example what kind of work we got done. So suppose we have developed, we have suppose done a survey, we have launched a survey. We want the survey to be done by volunteers. So it can be done. So it is done by them. So suppose we have now come up with, and this report needs to be actually formatted, designed, etc., etc. So any volunteer, actually one of the volunteer who is physically disabled, actually designed one of our, and then we give due credit to the person. So once it is designed, formatted, and made printable in a PDF version, and because we don't want to cut trees, we don't print many copies. It's all soft copies, and we give credit. So this kind of work, so proposal writing, document preparation, IC material is something which is very hit. So you students are very innovative in developing IC material, a small videos, a small infographics, and all those kind of stuff. And so where the NGOs don't have those kind of skill sets, and if they have to get it, they will have to spend money. So I think students, which whatever interest they have, so there are n number, like there is no restriction. So if an NGO is working in education sector or health sector or environment sector or climate sector, so they will that kind of opportunities, and volunteers will have those opportunities to do the work. So it's a very it's a marketplace where NGOs are there, volunteers are there, they come together, we just connect them, and then work is done, and then a certificate is given to the volunteer.
Okay, very nice. There's another question from one of our students. He says that in this current situation, there is a lot of fear and miscommunication among volunteers. Those who wants to really work outside, and really engage themselves in the COVID-19 issue and all. So, but there is a lot of miscommunication. So, what we can do to bring out volunteers in this such dark time? He's an MSW student, Anurag. He's asking this question. Yeah.
Yeah, so one is of course fear and anxiety. In any case, if you have a pandemic of this magnitude and you have mortality, etc., so there will always be anxiety among parents, among elders in the family, and so there is a lot of, and so much of fear is being created and peddled. So I think volunteers and students have that a golden opportunity to create a small, at least a dozen of webinars on from the doctors, from the psychiatrist, and by they're from the Ministry of Family Welfare, at least 8 to 10 languages. So it's not only in English or Hindi, but for volunteers working in Kerala is getting it translated into Malayalam, in Karnataka. So all those, so it's very much possible at this point of time, particularly during lockdown and when so much of restriction. Yeah. So we'll provide a lot of support to the volunteers who enroll. So you get, you don't. Yeah, please go. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, there is another question. She is our former colleague, Dr. Gitanjali Srivastava. She's from Lucknow, working there in a university. So she's asking that do this online volunteerism include some training also? I think you covered this. You would like to say anything? Do you have any volunteer training also for the online thing?
Yeah, online volunteers are oriented because they have to actually sign up for code of conduct, because you are becoming, online volunteer, but still you carry our image and everything. Our logo is used. So we want volunteers to take that kind of a small code of conduct understanding, that what is the sensitivities involved around, caste, community, gender, environment, and all those stuff. And then depending on the campaign, so if it is a campaign on COVID, you will get a lot of training, webinars, IC materials. You self-learn also. We are trying to launch e-learning courses. I think I also saw a couple of questions on e-learning on volunteering. But as I told you, before COVID, there were hardly, volunteers. We had to really look for volunteers. But now it is an opportunity. So we are working on that. In some time, probably we'll have e-learning courses also, which will. I also want to just help them understand one more thing, that apart from volunteering work, what we are using this B-Force volunteer is to build their capacity. So on tomorrow, I think tomorrow or day after, we are conducting a session on career counseling, that in post-COVID world, what kind of career opportunities you have, what you should look for, how you can build your CV, how you can, so that kind. So we have now lined up a number of courses which are not for volunteers per se, but for young people. So using their, lockdown period, how they can capitalize on that. So that will be another opportunity for volunteers to learn. It's not volunteer doing some work, but volunteer also learning in the process.
So there is another question from Mr. Ayush Chandra. He's asking that how do you see the impact of pandemic on mental health in the society? I think this is very generic question that we all know that there is an impact. You would like to say anything on this?
I'm not a psychiatrist or a doctor, so I would refrain from giving any, because this is very sensitive matter. Though we have been hearing on not only from the news channels, but also from our own channels, that it have a lot of impact on psychosocial issues. I just want to inform all the audience that UNDP and National Institute of Mental Health and what the NIMHANS in Bangalore, Mental Health and Neurosciences. So we have with them. We are coming up with a very packaged sort of intervention for young people, particularly how psychosocial health can be promoted. So maybe another week or so, you will be finding a lot of webinars happening through NIMHANS and for the young people.
So yeah, so in continuation, I think Dr. Gitanjali also added that is there any job opportunity also you provide for the enrolled volunteers, like further after completion, any connect or any system you have?
No, we don't promise right in the beginning. We say that it's a volunteering opportunities. But on the way, if there are opportunities which come, so suppose every month we keep hiring people, no? Every month, every 2 months, we have new demands coming up. So many of volunteers who have been online volunteers also apply for those volunteering position, and they certainly have an edge over others because they understand the system. They also have some orientation. But we don't.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I think the last question I'm taking this one, very important also, that how we can volunteer in the particular area which is far from technology, like rural areas. There is a less technology or internet issues are there. So how we will
you will be very surprised, Prashant, in this lockdown period. It's a very almost everywhere, like WhatsApp messaging and Facebook has really reached out to villages also. So what we have done, that each district has 10 or 12 or 15 blocks. Each block has, villages and, elected people. So so what we have done, we created WhatsApp groups. So because we work with the youth clubs, so there is a large network of youth clubs and women's club, Mahila Mandals in the local area. So we have created a kind of web network of networks. So if I send a message from WHO or Ministry of Health to one of my United Nations volunteers in say district X in so and so a state, this person will be reaching out to not less than 20,000 people by just sending one message, because there are at least in a district, he or she is supported by around 30 full-time volunteers who have their networks, and then down below at each village and Gram Panchayat level, there is a network. So that's how we are actually sending authenticated information in local languages. So So even we are reaching out to the remotest part in some tribal hamlet and some places where you have the mobile connectivity issue and people don't have. But every village we have found that there are a couple of smartphones with at least the village head or someone, some government official working in that area, living in that area. And that's how it's easier to reach out to them through. So yeah, so there are technical solutions even to reach out to the last mile.